Hello there. I created a new course in Storyline 360, and I'd love your opinion about it. Specifically, if I went overboard on showing some of the storyline features, some of my colleagues thinks that I'm actually cluttering the message out with shiny objects versus getting straight to the point. Any insightful feedback, no matter how critical, would be truly helpful. I've included a link to the course in the description. The target audience is instructional designers that use Articulate Storyline 360 and want to learn about serverless endpoints. The call to action is to have any interested ID sign up for a free webinar that I'm planning to host. So because I'm creating the course for advanced IDs, I wanted to show some interesting things that aren't typically available in courses, especially courses being hosted on Review 360. I'd like to go over the interaction touch points for context. Starting at the upper left-hand corner, I have a stats button that reveals the real-time stats about the page. I think it's a page counter, and it allows us to kind of recap what's happening in the course. And that's really not something that's truly possible without an endpoint. Now, you could do that for an individual, but you couldn't do it for everybody who's visited the site without storing this information and recalling it in a secure way. And that's where the endpoint comes into play. So this real-time counter was one way that I could show how this could be an interesting way to use endpoints. Then we have the search function. I totally geeked out and created an OpenAI assistant, then fed a vector database with the text on this screen and told it to only answer the questions based on the text I provided. I use this function in technical courses, and it's securely connected by an endpoint, basically. The OpenAI conversation is then prompted in the background. You don't see a lot of these prompts because of the endpoint. So again, this is a neat way to kind of use this endpoint function, and by integrating OpenAI in a secure way, because the key is not on this page. So the key is actually stored in the endpoint. And now imagine this database full of all these search terms. We could actually look at this and evaluate, again, using an LLM. You can evaluate what type of things you could do to improve your course, or new features or functions that people are searching for. You can have that data now and be able to reuse that. So this is, again, another feature that I wanted to kind of highlight. Moving along, the home, try, and feedback buttons. These are all just basic anchor points into this web page style course that I created. The FAQ section does the same thing, but this drops down into like a menu. So you can jump to different sections just by clicking on this. This is just a little trick that I use when I'm developing pages like this. I think it's a fun way to navigate. Feature. This page is actually kind of inspired by LinkedIn pages. I started off going really close to that style, and then I kind of drifted away for whatever reason. Now, you may have noticed this GIF in action. I set this up because if you put the video in the first slide or an audio in the first slide, that's what causes this, basically when you open up the course, that black screen with the play button. So I just added this and it jumps to another layer. This is really where the power of the actual training happens, though. It's all in this great video that I put together. It's only 5 minutes long, but it really kind of gets the wheels turning on why we use endpoints and how, an endpoint actually can help us out when we're trying to communicate with outside resources. So that's what I really want to cover during the webinar. That's a very powerful video. Let's move down to the VLC. My virtual learning companion uses the same OpenAI endpoint as the search function, but this is a more like a chat feature. So I've always imagined my friend Zara, who knows like 4 different languages. She escaped Iran over 10 years ago, and she's an amazing person. When she landed in Canada, she learned French and English, and now she's learning Spanish. So it's pretty clear when we have a conversation, she's actually converting what I'm saying into another language and then into Farsi, which is her native language. So, as a brilliant ID, she creates courses for this pretty big company in Canada. And so, what we do is we talk a lot. And when we talk, we're kind of debugging some of the technical things that she might be running into in Storyline. And when I talk to her, I realize that this conversion, sometimes when I talk fast or when she's watching a video, um, some of the words, and these words can be key terms, are new to her. And although she understands what they mean, she has to translate them. And when you talk really fast, like I do, sometimes that can happen and kind of slow down the learning process. So I feel like the VLC is perfect for somebody exactly like Zara, where she has a question about some sort of English written text or course, and she just wants to get insight onto a term or a meaning or to have it explained. And now she can type in Farsi and the VLC responds in Farsi. So this is a perfect example of why we want to capture the conversation, and those conversations happen inside of OpenAI basically, but because they're going through an endpoint, we're saving those conversations. Now imagine taking 100 conversations or 1,000 conversations and actually analyzing those conversations to see what we can do to make this course even better. Now we have more insight. And with that insight, we can actually go to the stakeholders and say, if we spend this amount of money to upgrade this site, we'll be able to address these questions that these past 100 or 1,000 people have asked. And this is the data behind it. So that's a powerful tool. I've kind of limited this interaction to only 3. So you can only have like 3 back and forths with the VLC. It's a very limited scope too. So the reason why I did that was just simply to kind of put a stopgap on anybody who's trying to spam it, because it of course costs a little bit of money to do this. So anyways, as I move on, what I want to do is create a way for people to see how we can save variables in one course and then recall those variables in a totally different course. Now, you can't even do this with an LMS, really. You can do some stuff with an LMS, but we can't really cross the wall, if you will, of information back and forth. But you could literally be taking any type of variable from one course and then reusing that conversation, that variable, whatever it is, as many as you want, into a new course. So I'm doing this by having somebody create an account. You sign up, you get a passcode in your email, you turn around, use that passcode to log in. Pretty straightforward. Then what we're doing is we go to a survey screen. The survey screen basically talks about how and why this is happening. And when you click on a couple of these buttons, add some text or don't add some text, but the big thing is clicking the next button below. When you click on this button, it opens up a brand new Review 360 link. So this is a whole different course page. And again, we're on Review 360. So now that we're on this whole new course page, again, I've got another kind of person that's trying to talk to you a little bit. But if we ignore that and we just dive into the actual signing back in, then we've got the variables that we just added from the first section. So now we can edit those or delete everything or do whatever we want. But that's basically the whole gist of it. The reason why I'm doing this is because endpoints are so important for us to use. They're also called serverless endpoints, but that's what the webinar is going to be about. And it's going to be a working webinar. But in order to get people to sign up, this was kind of my idea on how I can present this on LinkedIn, to see if I could get 20 or 30 people maybe in a group. And we spend about 90 minutes talking about endpoints, and I show some things, and then we field some questions and work on maybe a project together, all in 90 minutes. And that's kind of my gist. So any feedback that you have, do you think this is too busy? Do you think I should be more direct? Would be super helpful, because all I'm trying to do is help others see the power of using endpoints and how it actually works with like variables. So thanks again for taking the time to watch this.